Right now, you are living in a oligarchic society. Now, I am told by some pundits that the American people don't know what oligarchy is. I think they do. I was, for better or worse, actually worse, kind of pushed into the front row when Donald Trump was inaugurated. I was sitting about where you are sitting. Not a pleasant experience. And as some of you may recall, right behind Trump, sitting behind Trump, were the three wealthiest guys in America, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, Mr. Zuckerberg. And then sitting behind them were another 13 billionaires that Trump had nominated to serve as heads of major federal agencies. And as I was sitting there, I really did, I was reflecting on American history and reflecting that way back in 1863, as some of you will remember from your history books, Abraham Lincoln went to Gettysburg, and he was there a few days after that terrible battle where thousands of Union soldiers had died to put an end to the abomination of slavery. And Lincoln stood there and he wrote this speech very quickly, and he said, looking out on that field, were just a few days before people had died by the thousands. And he said, you know, we have, I'm paraphrasing, we have a vision of government. And our vision of government that these men did not die in vain for is to establish and maintain a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And as I sat at Trump's inaugural and I looked around, what it was clear to me is today we have a government of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. And what I can tell you, as someone who has traveled all across this country, is the American people will not accept oligarchy. We will not accept kleptocracy. We will not accept authoritarianism. So that is what the struggle is about right now. In America today, and you don't hear too much about it, so let me tell you, you have more income and wealth inequality in America today than we have ever had in the history of America. You have today one person, our friend Mr. Musk, who owns more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households. Now, you know, it's a funny thing, and this has a lot to do with who owns the media. What we get outraged about, what we get upset about, what we're allowed to get excited about, all right? If you step back for a moment and you say that in America in the year 2025, in the richest country in the history of the world, you got one guy owning more wealth than half the households of America, that is an outrage. That is unacceptable. That is not what this country is about. But it's not just one guy. You have the top 1% today, top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 93%. You got CEOs of large corporations making 350 times more than their workers. The people on top today and have never, ever in the history of this country had it so good. What's going on for the working families of America? The truth is, and this is again what I'm trying to get across, is that the media doesn't talk about it, and my colleagues in Congress, by and large, don't talk about it. You are living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And yet, today, in Wisconsin, Vermont, all over this country, 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. All right, I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck, lived in a rent-controlled apartment. Family didn't make much money. All over this country, here in Wisconsin, in Vermont, all over, people are struggling, trying to figure out how they're going to feed their kids, how they're going to pay the rent, how they're going to pay for health care. And maybe, dear God, will we have a few bucks saved for when we retire so we can live with a shred of dignity. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. 60% of our people should not be living paycheck to paycheck.
Senator Bernie Sanders recently expressed deep concern about the growing wealth inequality in the United States, suggesting that the country is no longer governed by the people, but by a small elite group of billionaires. He compared the current situation to what Abraham Lincoln envisioned during the Civil War, where he famously stated that the government should be of the people, by the people, for the people. Sanders argued that, today, America is governed of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, and for the billionaire class. Sanders highlighted the extreme concentration of wealth among a few individuals, specifically citing Elon Musk, who owns more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households combined. He explained that the top 1% of the population now controls more wealth than the bottom 93%, a staggering inequality that Sanders describes as unacceptable and outrageous. The issue, according to Sanders, is compounded by the fact that the CEOs of major corporations earn 350 times more than their average workers, contributing to the deepening wealth gap. Despite the United States being the wealthiest country in history, Sanders pointed out that 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. He shared his own personal experience growing up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck, living in a rent-controlled apartment and struggling to make ends meet. His message underscores the stark contrast between the nation's extreme wealth and the financial difficulties faced by everyday working families. Sanders stressed that the media and many politicians are not talking about these issues, and he called it an outrage that, in the richest nation in the world, so many people are struggling to afford basic necessities like food, housing, and health care. With many working-class Americans unsure if they will ever be able to retire with dignity, Sanders made it clear that this disparity is not in line with what the United States should stand for. He urged for significant change in the country's economic system, rejecting what he sees as a growing oligarchy and kleptocracy, where the wealthy and powerful control the system to their benefit. Sanders believes that the current state is unsustainable and that the American people will not accept a future where the government is run solely to benefit the rich. His call to action stresses the need for policies that prioritize the well-being of everyday Americans rather than catering to the billionaire class.